Israel has yet to face sanctions from the Irish government for this crime. Incredibly, demonstrating exactly what chutzpah means, Israel's Director of European Affairs, Norjalan, recently asked the Department of Foreign Affairs not to let valid passport holders participate in this legal and necessary humanitarian mission to Gaza. The governments of the United States and Israel both have the opportunity to show new maturity in their relationship with the Palestinian citizens of Gaza by ensuring that all threats to attack the Freedom Flotilla are withdrawn and its safe passage is guaranteed. Senator Debry has asked the Reachtas members to keep a watching brief on the voyage, stressing it is beholden on Irish parliamentarians to offer what support we can to this legitimate humanitarian exercise, an exercise that fellow Irishman John Ging of the UN Relief and Works Agency has called for. Second ship joins the Freedom Flotilla on way to Gaza. By Greta Berlin, the 22nd of May 2010. Istanbul, Turkey, amid cheers and waving of Turkish and Palestinian flags, the Mavi Marmara, the second ship to join the Freedom Flotilla, left Istanbul this afternoon. Sponsored by the Turkish humanitarian organization, İnsani Yardım Vakfı, IHH, or Foundation for Human Rights, Freedoms and Humanitarian Relief, the ship will carry 700 passengers to Gaza as part of the blockade-busting flotilla. It joins 8 other boats coming from 3 other countries carrying 10,000 tons of supplies to the Palestinian people, supplies that have been denied to them by Israel. Boats will meet in the Mediterranean and then turn toward Gaza to arrive at its besieged slice of beachfront by the end of May. Free Gaza Movement's Rachel Corrie is already on her way from Ireland and is presently off the coast of Portugal loaded with cement, paper, and supplies for schoolchildren and medical equipment. John Ging, head of United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, in the Gaza Strip, since 2006 said, "We recommend the world send ships to the shores of Gaza, and we believe that Israel would not stop these vessels because the sea is open, and many human rights organizations have been successful in previous similar steps and proved that breaking the siege on Gaza is possible. We will resist Israel's attempts to stop us." By Free Gaza Team. Heraklion, Crete, Tuesday, May 25, 2010. As Israel continues to insist it will stop the 7-ship International Freedom Flotilla, 2 more ships departed from Greece to Gaza today. A 2,000-ton cargo ship and 50-person passenger ship owned by the European Campaign to End the Siege of Gaza and Swedish/Greek Ship to Gaza campaigns left Athens to meet the Freedom Flotilla in international waters. They follow hot on the trail of the cargo ships of İnsani Yardım Vakfı, IHH's, and Free Gaza's Rachel Corrie. IHH's remaining 1,100 capacity passenger ship and cargo ship are to sail shortly from Turkey. In Crete, the Free Gaza movement is readying its 2 passenger boats for their imminent departure. Al-Samad, the Steadfast, and Al-Amal, the Hope, were named by children from schools in occupied Gaza and Jerusalem. Reports coming from the Israeli Navy say they will jam the flotilla's signals and communications, isolating those on board the ships, and barring the world from witnessing what could become a confrontation or prolonged naval standoff. The strategy of the Freedom Flotilla, however, is to resist any attempts by the Israeli Navy to hijack its ships or to divide cargo ships from passenger vessels. The message from Israel is clear: we will stop you. And no one can prevent us from stopping you, said Free Gaza Chair Huwaida Araf. However, we will non-violently resist Israeli attempts to seize our boats. Thousands of people have contributed to making this flotilla a reality, and the people of Gaza are expecting us. We will not allow our flotilla to be divided. We will stay with our cargo ships. They are the core of the flotilla, carrying essential construction materials denied entry into Gaza like cement, steel, and houses. This action is not a symbolic gesture, but a concrete intervention to allow the people of Gaza to rebuild their lives with dignity, emphasized passenger Ingaso Snowday, TD Sinn Féin Party, Ireland. Uajasiwix added, "We are not breaking the law. We are upholding it." We are acting out of necessity to prevent a greater crime from taking place, the collective punishment of 1.5 million people imprisoned in Gaza. The international community is complicit in this collective punishment and must break its silence. Respect for international law is not optional, it is obligatory. Email from Miriam Torres in Spokane, May 28, 2010. According to a report from the webcam, one, possibly two of the boats, after having been certified, checked, examined, and given the okay, now inexplicably develop serious problems. At least one is having difficulty steering and is taking on water. Cyprus received their marching orders this time and will not allow them to land for repairs, even though they know they need help. I believe that refusal is in violation of maritime and international law, and that there are European Parliament members aboard. A Turkish boat is going to retrieve passengers to take them to the meeting point. Not a peep in American media, except occasional one from Israeli perspective. www.witnessgaza.com. Israel's disinformation campaign against the Gaza Freedom Flotilla. By Free Gaza Team, the 28th of May 2010. For over 4 years, Israel has subjected the civilian population of Gaza to an increasingly severe blockade, resulting in a man-made humanitarian catastrophe of epic proportions. Earlier this month, John Jing, the director of operations of the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, in Gaza, called upon the international community to break the siege on the Gaza Strip by sending ships loaded with humanitarian aid. This weekend, 9 civilian boats carrying 700 human rights workers from 36 countries and 10,000 tons of humanitarian aid will attempt to do just that, break through the Israel's illegal military blockade on the Gaza Strip and non-violent direct action. In response, the Israeli government has threatened to send out half of its naval forces to violently stop our flotilla, and they have engaged in a deceitful campaign of misinformation regarding our mission. Israel claims that there is no ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Every international aid organization working in Gaza has documented this crisis in stark detail. Just released earlier this week, Amnesty International's annual human rights report stated that Israel's siege on Gaza has deepened the ongoing humanitarian crisis. Mass unemployment, extreme poverty, food insecurity and food price rises caused by shortages left 4 out of 5 Gazans dependent on humanitarian aid. The scope of the blockade and statements made by Israeli officials about its purpose showed that it was being imposed as a form of collective punishment of Gazans, a flagrant violation of international law. 1. Israel claims that its blockade is directed simply at the Hamas government in Gaza and is limited to so-called security items. When US Senator John Kerry visited Gaza last year, he was shocked to discover that the Israeli blockade included staple food items such as lentils, macaroni, and tomato paste. 2. Furthermore, JISHA, the Israeli Legal Center for Freedom of Movement, has documented numerous official Israeli government statements that the blockade is intended to put pressure on Gaza's population and collective punishment of civilians. Is an illegal act under international law. 3. Israel claims that if we wish to send aid to Gaza, all we need do is go through official channels and give the aid to them, and they will deliver it. This statement is both ridiculous and offensive. Their blockade, their official channels, is what is directly causing the humanitarian crisis in the first place. According to former US President Jimmy Carter, Palestinians in Gaza are being actually starved to death, receiving fewer calories per day than people in the poorest parts of Africa. This is an atrocity that is being perpetrated as punishment on the people in Gaza. It is a crime, an abomination that this is allowed to go on. Tragically, the international community at large ignores the cries for help, while the citizens of Gaza are treated more like animals than human beings. 4. Israel claims that we refused to deliver a letter and package from POW Gilad Shaalit's father. This is a blatant lie. We were first contacted by lawyers representing Shaalit's family Wednesday evening, just hours before we were set to depart from Greece. Irish Senator Mark Daly, Kerry, one of 35 parliamentarians joining our flotilla, agreed to carry any letter and deliver it to UN officials inside Gaza. As of this writing, the lawyers have not responded to Senator Daly, electing instead to attempt to smear us in the Israeli press. 5. We have always called for the release of all political prisoners in this conflict, including the 11,000 Palestinian political prisoners languishing in Israeli jails, among them hundreds of child prisoners. 6. Most despicably of all, Israel claims that we are violating international law by sailing unarmed ships carrying humanitarian aid to a people desperately in need. These claims only demonstrate how degenerate the political discourse in Israel has become. Despite its high-profile pullout of illegal settlements and military presence from Gaza in August to September 2005, Israel maintains effective control over the Gaza Strip and therefore remains an occupying force with certain obligations. 7. Among Israel's most fundamental obligations as an occupying power is to provide for the welfare of the Palestinian civilian population. An occupying force has a duty to ensure the food and medical supplies of the population, as well as maintain hospitals and other medical services, to the fullest extent of the means available to it. G4, Arts 55, 56. This includes protecting civilian hospitals, medical personnel, and the wounded and sick. In addition, a fundamental principle of international humanitarian law, as well as of the domestic laws of civilized nations, is that collective punishment against a civilian population is forbidden. G4, Art 33. Israel has grossly abused its authority as an occupying power, not only neglecting to provide for the welfare of the Palestinian civilian population, but instituting policies designed to collectively punish the Palestinians of Gaza. From fuel and electricity cuts that hinder the proper functioning of hospitals, to the deliberate obstruction of humanitarian aid delivery through Israeli-controlled borders, Israel's policies toward the Gaza Strip have turned Gaza into a man-made humanitarian disaster. The dire situation that currently exists in Gaza is therefore a result of deliberate policies by Israel, designed to punish the people of Gaza. In order to address the calamitous conditions imposed upon the people, one must work to change the policies causing the crisis. The United Nations has referred to Israel's near-hermetic closure of Gaza as collective punishment. 8. Strictly prohibited under Article 33 of the Fourth Geneva Convention. All nations signatory to the convention have an obligation to ensure respect for its provisions. 9. Given the continuing and sustained failure of the international community to enforce its own laws and protect the people of Gaza, we strongly believe that we all, as citizens of the world, have a moral obligation to directly intervene in acts of non-violent civil resistance to uphold international principles. Israeli threats and intimidation will not deter us. We will sail to Gaza again and again and again, until this siege is forever ended, and the Palestinian people have free access to the world. Israel threatening to stop Freedom Flotilla to Gaza. By Free Gaza Team, May 29, 2010. The ships from different locations are meeting in international waters in the Mediterranean, and heading toward Gaza this weekend. Those aboard the ships reportedly include over 30 parliamentarians from various countries as well as other notables. Among the Americans on board, Ambassador Edward L. Peck, Joe Meaders, and Colonel Ann Wright. Ambassador Peck was chief of mission in Iraq and Mauritania and deputy director of the White House Task Force on Terrorism in the Reagan administration. Meaders is a survivor of the 1967 attack by Israel on the U.S. military ship the US Liberty, in which 34 Americans were killed. Wright is a 29-year U.S. Army/Army Reserves veteran who retired as a colonel and a former U.S. diplomat who resigned in March 2003 in opposition to the invasion of Iraq. She just wrote the piece "The Audacity of the Free Gaza Flotilla. Breaking the Israeli siege of Gaza may lead to an attack at sea, detention camps and deportation." EU's new foreign affairs minister made a statement. European Union, Brussels, the 28th of May 2010. Statement by the spokesperson of High Representative Catherine Ashton on the flotilla sailing to Gaza. The spokesperson of High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy / Vice President of the Commission Catherine Ashton issued a following statement today. We strongly urge that all involved act with a sense of restraint and responsibility and work for a constructive resolution. The EU remains gravely concerned by the humanitarian situation in Gaza. The continued policy of closure is unacceptable and politically counterproductive.